Welcome to the House Files. This is our YouTube channel where we document building a triplex in Portland, Oregon. So follow along for the fun parts.
And the stressful parts.
I'm excited about today's video because it's extremely relevant to me, and numerous people had a lot of questions for it. And it is all about how to design a kitchen when you are vertically challenged like I am. So Aaron, who is our expert guest here that is joining us?
Our expert guest is my mom, who has been designing kitchens for quite a long time. I think shortly after I was born.
Exactly.
And I grew up around kitchen designing, and I remember helping out on some projects.
You did.
Actually, and doing the CAD part of that process. It was a lot of fun.
I've been certified for quite a long time by the National Kitchen and Bath Association, and after having the a certificate for kitchen design, then I also went farther and got the aging in place certificate.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing, aging. And so that kind of opened up my eyes to the world of lots of different needs.
So many questions were submitted by people asking about how, I was just like, short people, what questions do you have about how a kitchen should be designed? And just absolutely overwhelming number of questions. So I think our first question was, how tall are you?
I'm 5 feet tall, 5 feet and 0 inches tall.
Okay,
yes.
So you're pretty much the same height as me. I'm like 4'11", or if I do a lot of yoga, I'm 5 feet tall.
And I'm 5'6", so I'm not super tall, but definitely can reach higher cabinets than Lily can.
Yeah, the tall person in the household of 2 people and 1 cat. So you're an expert in terms of how you live as well as your professional experience.
What works for me in my kitchen, what works for my family. Obviously, you've said your height, but we have another son who's 6'1". So when he comes to the kitchen, how's he comfortable in it? What happens with him? So.
That was one of the kind of overwhelming questions. So how do you accommodate for different people? But I think the first thing is the great part about our kitchen is neither of us are particularly tall, and we decided we don't care about other people in our kitchen. I'll make you a drink, go sit there, stop trying to help me in the kitchen. And so you designed our kitchen, and you really integrated a lot of stuff that I thought I never would have thought of. I just didn't think I just thought all kitchens were uncomfortable. And what were the top things that you try to do to design kitchens to be comfortable if you're shorter?
Right. Well, first I like to think about how I'm working in the kitchen, or how my client's working in the kitchen. And if they're chopping a lot of vegetables, baking a lot, they're definitely going to need a counter height that's appropriate for those actions. And so as you discovered, when you stand at a range, you're stuck at 36 inches. A range is a range. It's always built that height. But when you separate the cooktop and the oven, all of a sudden it opens up opportunities. So my very favorite thing is to find a zone where the main cook or cooks are going to be chopping and prepping and cooking on a cooktop, and have that section be really workable, and find out how tall you are, work with your elbow height and all these things I can describe later to make that section of the counter and workflow work best for you.
And it's possible to design a kitchen that doesn't look bad even though it has different height counters.
Right. It's actually very common these days to have different heights of counters. It's becoming more and more understood that we need different heights for different purposes.
Okay. Yeah, I read that quite often baking bread is something people want to do at a lower height. Is there a logical reason for that?
Well, you want to get your upper body up into the motions, and so a taller person at a lower counter is very happy doing those baking movements. And you could even think about plating food at a lower counter, where you can really set up the food on the plate and do as you please with decorating it. And anybody of any height is going to be happy to look down more into that.
Taking pictures for Instagram of your food. Absolutely. So were there any other top tips? So separating the cooktop, and maybe just only some of the counters are at a lower height. Right. What other kind of things help? A lot of people said, I climb on countertops to get to the top cabinets. Is there other ways to be able to access your upper cabinets?
Right. Well, I do keep a step stool handy in my kitchen. I would have like my clients stand and say, how far can you reach if there's if a cabinet in front of you and you're going to reach up on the wall, and then how high is comfortable for you. So probably 16 inches above the counter height, whatever that counter height is going to be for you, is about where your first shelf should be. About 16 inches up, and then put shorter things on that shelf so that your second shelf
is not as
high, and then you can put the taller things on that second shelf.
I think you're explaining a lot of the problems with our current kitchen to me,
which is really common.
I guess like one of the questions we often had was, okay, so if you're 5 feet tall, but then someone else in your household is 6 feet tall, how do you make sure that both people are able to be comfortable in the kitchen?
Mostly that you do that with zoning. So as I said earlier, finding the one place where you'll be chopping and cooking on a cook's top or in pots and pans, keeping that at a lower level. Most taller cooks are not too uncomfortable at that section. And then providing another section that's higher. And actually, if you go up to, say, 39 inches, you can accommodate someone who's 6'2", 6'3", easily. And if you bring your one section of your counter up to 39, now it gives you the opportunity to put your single oven or microwave oven underneath that counter.
Oh, and it's at a good height for the short person, too.
Which, exactly. The appliance becomes really ergonomically accessible, and the taller person who's in the kitchen has a counter to work above that.
Oh,
so it's like double duty then.
That's very interesting. A lot of this sounds like very custom kind of design decisions, but I know a lot of people are concerned about like, okay, well, if you build this super customized kitchen, is that going to hurt the resale value? Are there things that you can do that aren't going to make your kitchen look totally weird on the resale market?
Well, I think that a lot of people expect a little bit more eclectic these days anyway.
Yeah, okay.
And character and something unique and workable. And I think that a lot of people coming into a kitchen with more than one zone are actually going to be very pleased.
Right.
You can separate your own work style, even if it's just you in the kitchen, but you have two different heights, then you can do different types of work in that kitchen.
Yeah.
I know when I'm cooking, I like a certain height, but there are other things I can do that I will be comfortable at a higher height.
Yeah.
So you mentioned putting the oven underneath a taller base cabinet, but what is a good height for ovens, microwaves, that isn't just, the standard stuff you see everywhere of like upper cabinet microwave?
Right. Usually upper cabinet microwaves are too high for most people anyway. Almost nobody can actually see inside of something in there. And over the stove and cooktop especially is poor. So typically, if you think about yourself and you kind of have a primary zone of what's reachable, what's like at elbow height, that's like your primary zone. And then you have a secondary zone that goes from your knees to your shoulders. And that's where you can take something out of an oven if it's not below your knees, reach up if it's not above your shoulders.
Oh,
so kind of find your zone and say that's what I can do most things I'm going to access daily in the first and second zone.
That makes sense.
And then use the third zone, which is below your knee and above your shoulder, for the things that you don't need to access daily or aren't going to be too heavy.
Right. Don't store your crock pot on the very top shelf, even if you don't use it often.
So finding those zones. So I would say for a single oven, microwave, something underneath a 39-inch high cabinet, great for almost everybody. And then even under a 36-inch cabinet, down in a base, under a 36-inch cabinet for our height works really quite well.
So it kind of sounds like you could apply some of these ideas to any kitchen that already exists, and just a matter of figuring out what things to put in which shelves and where to arrange your shelves, even if you already are like in an apartment that you're renting.
Sure, storing things appropriately for the location, exactly.
So I used to be like a commercial dishwasher as a job, and I didn't realize that not everybody washes dishes on their toes.
Oh.
And the thing about commercial sinks is they're great because they're like stainless steel and they're huge, but they're really deep. Right. And something that a lot of folks mentioned that is a problem is that like it's either hurts your shoulders to be constantly like not able to reach in because you have a deep sink, or if you're like me, you wash dishes and your whole chest gets wet because you're like at chest height for your sink. Is there like a optimum, if you get to make a choice of where your sink is placed, is there an optimum height for it?
Well, I like to be able to reach the bottom. I find that at a 36-inch counter, an 8-inch deep sink works well. And the reason I might still need a 36-inch high counter for my dishwashing area is that the dishwashers themselves are 36 inches high. So we don't have a lot of flexibility. Sometimes you can get one at 35, 34 if you're lucky. But if we just stick with, okay, standard dishwasher, come across, and here's my sink, 8 inches deep, works really well. The other thing to think about, though, is how far are you leaning forward before you put your hands in the sink. So the apron sink with the slim front, it's really nice to be able to reach your hands down into the sink and not over the lip.
That makes sense.
So does that also mean you want the sink next to the dishwasher, typically?
Near, very near, because again, if you're scraping and rinsing, you don't want to drip across the floor. So
Someone asked, is there a way to do vertical storage that doesn't involve climbing on counters?
just as in wall cabinets, the top, very top, is really only reachable with a step stool. So already understand that. But a tall pantry storage is great because again, that sort of primary, secondary zone, that's your perfect place for storage. So I like tall cabinets. If they're deep, then you'll need rollouts, either rollout drawers, shelves, or a whole front that pulls forward. And when the whole front pulls forward, you can stand and visually see everything and reach everything.
So cool. That sounds really nice.
Those, and if it's double-sided, if you don't have a wall on either side, then you've got it double-sided, then it's all shallow. And so you're not putting things behind other things on that.
Yeah.
So two-sided, pull out, that's like the ideal.
So I know you designed your own kitchen for yourself, and you're kind of the primary cook in your family, right? Tell me about the process of actually figuring out the design, because by the time you designed that kitchen, you'd already been designing kitchens.
I had been designing for a long time, and I highly looked forward to that experience of designing a kitchen for us to live in. So again, for multiple sizes of people and types of cooking and large family get-togethers. So zone's really important. What's happening in the kitchen, what type of cooking I do, my family does. And then finding that one perfect spot for my lower cabinetry. And that's right by my cooktop. I have a nice 30-inch wide section of prep area right next to my 30-inch cooktop. And I do almost everything in the kitchen there. I have a small prep sink that's up at the 36-inch high. And the rest of the counter there is 36-inch high. And on the other side of my cooktop, it's as well 36. So it looks very balanced. It looks very purposeful. I have a hood, and I have mounted the wall cabinets lower and closer to that prep area, so I can reach easily two shelves and a third for all my cooking oils and vinegars and those kinds of things. Everything's reachable for me.
It'd be nice to be able to see my oils when I pull them down off the shelf.
I also took those cabinets a little bit shallower.
Oh yeah,
so that things aren't behind other things. I can see what I have and get what I need.
So is there anything that you regret doing in your kitchen?
I don't really use a microwave very often, so I didn't put much thought into it. And I said, I'll just put it up there where everybody puts it. It's next to the refrigerator, which is handy for reheating or thawing, but it is up a bit high. I would definitely have planned it a little bit lower. Luckily, as I say, I don't use it often, but I would do that differently. Bring the microwave back down to a more reachable height.
So do you think people should work with a professional designer or go just all DIY when they are working on their own kitchen?
That's a very good question. Entirely DIY takes a lot of time, a lot of research. It's a lot of fun if you have the time and the research. And it's actually how I became a kitchen designer. Our very first home we bought in California was a remodel, and we wanted to dig in, we wanted to do it all ourselves. And I learned a lot by doing that, by going through that process. But ideally, I think finding a designer who, number one, is will take the time to understand you and your needs, your way of cooking, like all these things we've talked about, and then is not attached to any products. A designer who's not attached to products, because you really don't need a bias behind their design ideas. So I think those, I would hire a professional, but yes, I'm a little biased.
Is there any certifications or associations people should look out for, especially if they're short or really tall and they want someone who's thinking about ergonomics in their kitchen design? Is there any type of certifications they should look for when looking for a kitchen designer?
Sure. The National Kitchen and Bath Association is the sort of standard of the industry. So finding companies or designers who are members of that organization, certified kitchen designer, certified bath designer, they have training, and the training has been getting so much better and better over the years in understanding these. The aging in place specialty comes with certified aging in place specialist, CAPS. So if you see that after somebody's name, then they've gone through some certification process around understanding needs as we age,
right,
or as we have children in the home, and then older parents in the home, that kind of thing.
Anything you are particularly excited about our design for the kitchen?
Oh, I am really excited about your kitchen for you too. It's been really fun working with both of you and thinking about how you work together. You both work so well in the kitchen together, and there's plenty of space for both of you to be in there doing the different kinds of things you make, salsas and different things.
Oh my God, I'm so excited that we will be able to one person will be able to empty the dishwasher without the rest of the kitchen being unusable, which is how our current kitchen is.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited about that.
And there's a place for me to sit on the stool and watch it all.
Yep. Yeah, and people
And
can
enjoy
chat, because the party's always in the kitchen. So I think ours is set up really well to actually have the party be in the kitchen rather than awkwardly standing there.
I'm really excited about the separate bar kitchen too, for coffee making that doesn't interfere with the rest of the kitchen food situation.
That's right, and it's in the social area of the space.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And we'll have to have you come back when the actual kitchen is done, and we can do a how did the plans actually match reality, because things are always going to change, right? So, yeah. So if people become convinced that they want you to make their kitchen after they watch this video, are you still working?
Well, it's been over 35 years that I've been designing, and so I consider myself semi-retired, because I really don't.
You're like, I don't want work.
I'm really
Yeah.
semi-retired. Pushing towards the less semi and the more retired.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for coming and providing your expertise as a tiny human and as a kitchen designer to us.
Well, thank you for asking me here. It's been really fun talking with you.